Games, board games. We might be talking about board games, but I'm not gonna shout. Again, we're back for another chat with the person known as Matt Green. And Matt Green is a person that I mean joined in the contest of redesigning, and we're going to talk about that. We'll have a lovely chat with Matt Green. Matt Green, welcome to the show, 10 a.m. ish UK time for Busy Beats and Board Game Blether. Good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is to everyone out there. And as basically, this has been on my mind because on a recent Facebook post, I said to a whole bunch of people, hey, this game, which I made for the 2014-2015 UK Games Expo redesign contest, is finally coming out. I mean, I might get into a little bit of the story, but it was Ben Green, Cara's partner, who said, I think this makes it the second game to come out of that contest after Flicky Spaceships. I wasn't a winner, I was a runner-up, although obviously at the time the judges were quite happy with what I'd made and expressed that and said, yeah, this is really nice, it's almost ready for publication. But it's taken, how long is that? more than 7 years for it to basically reach the point of, yes, we are publishing it next year. Part of that might be because it's dragged out. I mean, I'm not saying every game contract is going to take this long, but I think it's a reminder that sometimes it can, and that's not the worst thing in the world. Now, before we get started, Matt, for those who haven't met you, for those who haven't seen yesterday's show, who are you and what is your favorite insect?
The big stuff right off the bat. Amateur game designer, I suppose professional entomologist, hence the insect question. I design games for fun, and as Bez has alluded to, I entered the board game redesign competition the year before Bez did, and yes, the game myself and Sam Mercer made did see print in the end, and it has got it's a roller coaster ride of a story, and hopefully we can explore some of that today and look at game design competitions and whatever else. But when I'm not doing all that, I drink a lot of tea and I hanker after Japanese motorcycles and eat pistachio nuts and generally try and keep everything down as the world gets more complex and I get older and things become far too difficult for me to deal with. But yes, other than that, it's all right. I try and remain calm when all about me is getting more complicated, I think.
And are you drinking tea right now, or are you drinking something else? I myself am drinking vitamin C and multivitamins, effervescent in water.
That is excellent. After our discussion yesterday about fresh fruit, I decided that given that it's Christmas, that the only thing to do would be to start early with with a Bucks Fizz. Excellent.
Okay, wow. I was actually tempted to 10 minutes before we started, while I was half asleep, and I saw something about, hey, if you'd like to join me for a Christmas drink, please do. Someone else said. I thought we could do that. I mean, I could bring the mead. It's proper mead from Germany, from Spiel, and one of them's even but I feel like I do want to get better, so
no, it's true.
Too much of it.
You are recovering. It's fair. I should. You should just allow me to set the bad example. I'm afraid, but
that's
season's
totally
greetings.
Enjoy. It is Christmas, and Merry Christmas to everyone out there. I hope that you're having a good day. If you're watching this after Christmas, or if you don't celebrate Christmas, then I hope you have a good day, no matter what day it is, or at least it isn't terrible. And Doda says, hi all, Merry We Choose Christ Was Born Today Day.
It is totally arbitrary, but nonetheless, it's worth a celebration.
Mm-mm. I'm going to ask. So it seems we've started the questionably quick questions early. So questionably quick questions is the next section. It's not an interrogation. It's just a questionably quick question section. So, this morning I was having I had I say a conversation. I got a message from from a Christian who quite a few days ago on Twitter had said, people, any anti-theism is an act of hate, where if you tell someone that they don't believe in, this is destroying their most valued thing, the most valued thing in the world. And I expressed, this was a few days ago, I expressed my thoughts that, well, from their perspective, it's not destroying the most valuable thing, and they are telling you what they believe in. It's synonymous with spreading the gospel. Unless you see that as an act of hate, it's I don't believe that it is an act of hate on their part. Anyway, so the person said, no, it's poisoning someone, and you don't, if you poison someone and call it love, it's not real love. So, and I wrote a reply. I thought, it's Christmas. I understand that it's not really a Christian thing. I mean, it came from pagan beliefs, anyway, the arbitrary date. But I thought I better not write it right now, so I scheduled it to arrive on the 27th. You look like you. Do you believe that was a good move?
It was an absolutely great move. I think not sending emails is or not responding when emotions are high is a very, very good skill, and one I should certainly learn. No, I
It
think that's
wasn't about
absolutely
that.
the right
It's
call.
more that, like, I mean, it feels like a day when, yeah, let's just leave it out of respect to this other person.
Yeah,
But hello, Saint.
absolutely.
I hope you're generally well. So my question to you is, was this your card?
It was my card.
Okay.
Also,
Magic.
I owe you an answer to the favorite insect question. Sorry, it's a strange beetle called Troxgaber, which
Troxclaver.
is only found in owl nests, and no one knows anything about it. But it looks lovely. It's really knobbly.
So does it feed on owl poop?
Yeah, and
Wow.
no one knows how it moves from one place to another, or really much about it at all, because there are far more insects than there are people that are watching them, that are looking at them. But yeah, it's a really strange one. It's a lovely looking little thing as well. But there you go.
It says it wasn't my card. Try again. I mean, apparently it was Matt's card. That's
That was
magic.
definitely my card.
It was magic. You'll never know how the trick was done. And I promise we hadn't had any conversation. Can you confirm that we hadn't had any conversation before that?
No
So,
conversation at all. That was pure psychic power. Nothing raw.
mm.
Yeah, raw psychic power.
In all seriousness, do you like magic? Have you watched much Penn and Teller?
I have watched quite a bit of Penn and Teller actually. I have a lot of time for them. I think they're very cool. Do I like it? Yeah, I do. It's one of these things. It's one of these things where you have to admire the hours of practice that goes into it. I think that stage magicians are often quite lonely and isolated folk, and are quite sort of introverted, in as much as, in order to get that good, and some of them are insanely good at this sort of close magic and
All
manipulation
sorts of
of
things.
stuff.
And I have to admit, it's interesting when they say, yes, we intentionally like to say that we deceive people, because when it's in a situation where you're not sure, is this real, is it not, with that mentalism, with some of the
Sure.
stuff that David Blaine does when they say, I'm really doing this, I am really being in this solid block of ice for so many days. I mean, if people believe that, because David Blaine does present it in deliberately a credible way to say,
Sure.
this is actually happening, and that can be quite dangerous, I think.
Yeah, I
See,
think so.
is this your card? And this is actually based on right. And actually, SX, I did bring this up just at the same time. Matt can confirm
It's true.
from, yeah. So there we
That's
go.
fantastic.
But yeah, that's obviously because it's got an X on it. That was how I
No,
guess that.
stage magic's interesting. There was a Magic player, Magic the Gathering player, way back in the day, a guy called Jamie Badman, who became convinced that a particularly good player was stacking their deck against him. This was way back when in the days of one particular combo deck called Cadaverous Bloom or Bloom Drain. And he became convinced that one of the opponents was able to manipulate the order of the cards in their deck. And he started looking at this sort of professionally, started to look at how you could do this. And he got so far into it that he eventually stopped playing Magic the Gathering and actually started practicing stage magic and became very, very good at card deck manipulation and stage magic. But sorry, that's just from apropos of nothing.
Interesting, and I think that being able to do that sleight of hand, I have heard stories of people actually doing it where it's been discovered through camera investigation after the fact, which is really investigation, and it does feel like, sure, at the high level, if you can palm off a card to make sure you've got the right card at the right point, or make sure you don't get any lands that you don't need, or obviously you can massively increase the chance of you winning any given game.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, if you put money on the line, and obviously there's more of a sort of
hundreds of thousands of pounds on some of these contests.
I mean, and that's why that's why professional sort of poker and blackjack uses they don't let the players touch the deck, right? You have a croupier to do that. You have a dealer that manipulates the deck for you, who's working for the house. So it does make sense, and then all of a sudden you're putting a 100 hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of prizes in the hands of people who can then get to manipulate the odds of them actually succeeding. So I would imagine the temptation is huge.
And maybe for some people they learn sleight of hand just for it, but let's crack on and talk about recent highlights, living life and seeing sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Recent highlights. Yesterday, I did head off to play a few games with some people from Hereford. It's the Here for Board Games thing, and then they've got another thing tonight from 9 p.m, I think. It was ostensibly from 7 until 9. Gathered at 7, started playing 7:20, carried on until maybe 9:20. We played Game of Truces, we played some Just One, a couple of games of Downforce, which So I've talked about Truces before, a social deduction game, very light. There's nothing much to it. Definitely more interesting when you've got people who can actually talk rather than just using Board Game Arena. I think that all of these social deduction games with no extra information, with low extra information, I should say, to be fair to the fact that, yes, there's a sweeper and other rules that can sometimes get information, but it's not 100% guaranteed. You want to have that talking. You want to be able to ideally know what people are like, to be able to say, hey, this person's talking a lot. Maybe that means something. And have it be based on something other than the fact that that person just happens to talk a lot. Or say, hey, this person's very quiet, and have that mean something. Or this person's taking a lot of time on their turns, and again, have that mean something. I think that, it's a fine game. Just One is a lovely game. I will say that the implementation is about as good as it could have possibly been. It's a really nice. Have you played Just One on Board Game Arena?
No, I haven't. No.
Like with the typing and the ticking, and once you've typed your answer, you see whether everyone else is prepared, and then the person in next turn order to the current guesser has the responsibility of checking that all of these answers are okay. So it works really well. Just One's a brilliant game.
It is. Absolutely brilliant game.
And Downforce, have you played Downforce? What do you think of this one?
Downforce. Now, the only Downforce I know is the racing game. Are we thinking about the same one?
Yeah. But and State says, yes, I love the Board Game Arena Just One implementation. Downforce was, I don't know if it was changed title, but it was based on an old game. Restoration Games, they do this thing where they re-release stuff. So this was done maybe within the past 5 years, and similar to Fireball Island, similar to Unmatched, similar to Return to the Dark Tower, and Stop Thief, all games that they take and then they change. It's okay. I mean, I played it a couple of times. I'm not in a rush to play it again, is the truth. I feel like you auction off for your car, if your car wins, you will win the game, and your 3 times during the game, you're betting on who will actually win.
That's the
and you
one.
get points for your car winning, and you get points for betting on the correct thing. And it feels like, sure, if you're just trying to exceed some value, then you might bet on cars that aren't yours. Or if you're just trying to bet, increase your chance of not coming last or coming third or second, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
But if you actually want to win, it feels like 99% of the time, and I've not done any statistics on this, but the people who'd actually played it quite a bit agreed with me that this is probably true. The person who owns the winning car and has bets on themselves is going to be the person who wins. Because if someone else bets on the winning car, well, they're still probably not going to win. Sate says winning has nothing to do with your car's color. I completely disagree, because if there's multiple people who've bet on the winner, which is, maybe you could say that's a big assumption, but in that scenario, it is, you will eke out a few extra points by owning that car, unless in the situation where maybe you've paid 6 for it, which is the absolute maximum, and someone else has paid like 2 for their car, then if their car manages to come second, then it can still work. But
it's more of a betting game that happens to have a racing theme than, I mean, you can manipulate the odds of the bets, certainly, but it's not. It's a strange old game.
I really like the racing aspects. I really like the maneuvering bits. I really like the bits of moving the cars around and all that. And I'll chat about this more tomorrow, probably, because I'm on my own and I have nothing else to talk about. So I'll maybe do a roundup of all the Board Game Arena things. But I just don't feel a lot of scope for trying different stuff. It never felt like, oh, you could do this, but if you do that, then it always felt like, well, what card do you think is going to win? What card do you want to win? I hope Matt's okay there. Matt, you're aware you've... Oh, was that...
No, I'm fine, don't worry. Excuse me, sorry.
Oh, you had to do something private there.
That's yeah, just blow my nose, that's all right, don't worry.
Oh, fair enough. It reminds me of
no,
that.
Will says if you like moving cars, maybe try Vector Race. I played Heat the other night, which I thought was great. I thought that was a race game in the vein of Flamme Rouge, but where Flamme Rouge does bicycle racing very well. But I mean, it does bicycle racing very well, but bicycle racing is very, very different to car racing. This Heat, I thought, was good for. He was good for using the same sort of system, but to model car racing. That's fine, which is fine. Name is Zate. Okay. Oh, I see. For board games. Oh, crikey! I'd never actually considered that.
You never considered cooking for board games?
No, absolutely. But that's brilliant. I mean, that's a good offer. That's a good offer. Absolutely.
And it's a draw. I mean, it's not any board games. You can't just turn up with copies of Flux. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I mean,
but
I mean, there's a sliding scale. I mean,
what kind of board games you might.
No, this is fascinating. So is there a sliding scale? I mean, if I'm Lobster Thermidor, is that it? I mean, am I breaking out Advanced Civilization here? I mean, it's yeah. I mean, would Megasiv get you a 7-course meal? I mean, this is great. I like this. No, I'm afraid not. I'm afraid just one only gets you a light snack. I like this. This is good.
So you can turn up with bad board games, but the menu might be meh. what's in my compost.
Now that is an excellent way of curating what hits your table. I like it. Yeah, that's brilliant.
I like that. And I do cook nicer meals for nicer games, sure. So
Absolutely.
if you bring
Why not?
along the big box of Anachrony, I think that would probably get you the creme de la creme.
Oh, no, that's
Knowing fate
fantastic.
somewhat. But
Ah,
yes,
dear.
the last game that we played was Concept, which I will say I think is much better in real life.
Concept's really interesting because this is a really strange situation where Concept Kids is, I think, a better game than Concept. Which is a strange old thing. If you ever get the chance to, I'd be interested in your thoughts on this one, actually, Bez. Because yeah, if you ever get the chance to play Concept Kids, have a go, because it's different. It's a lot less complex in terms of it's easier to see what's it's easier to see what's going on. You move sort of bits and pieces around. But it's more fun. Like it's significantly more fun than the big game. But yeah, if you ever get a chance, Sam put me onto this one, who plays it with his kids, and yeah, it's great fun. But yeah, real Concept is too much for not enough reward. But Concept
I
Kids is
was just talking
perfect.
about the board game arena version versus the real life version, but I've not played Concept Kids yet. But I could absolutely imagine that being the case.
Yeah.
You know, Difference by Gigamic, who I'm obviously biased about, but it's a spot the difference game with there's a platonic ideal. Imagine there's one card that doesn't exist. It's an image, okay? Every card that actually exists has one difference between itself and this platonic ideal, which means that every two cards have two differences. So every time you take two cards, there'll always be two differences. And then you find, okay, that's the difference, puts it on top of each other, and then it'll always be the difference that's already been shown plus one other. Now, for the adult version, it's fine. It's like, okay, we want to drill into it a little bit more. But even for me, like as a fully functioning, I think like I'm reasonably smart adult, when I'm in that mind space that I want a party game, that I want something that's fast flowing, I much prefer playing Difference Kids. I much prefer that because rather than with the real version, sometimes it takes like 30 seconds to find a thing, and that can feel a bit like the wind's being taken out of your sails, like it's a slower thing. But with the kids game, it's like boom, 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 finding the differences like every few seconds, and so it keeps the thing up.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, you're
Josie, sorry, I can't see. I assume you've drawn some sort of GIF, but I totally cannot see it right now. I will check it out afterwards. And Merry Christmas, Josie. I hope you're having a wonderful day.
It's interesting you refer to it as the kids versus the real game. I think that's a shame, really. I think it should be perfectly reasonable that the kids version be an equally real game. Just for I mean. Why is it that simplification is seen as a bad thing, or is it shouldn't be, really, should it? It's just a different way of executing the same principle.
I guess if I said that, it's because of the way it's presented.
Yeah,
because for sure. Normally, you don't get something adult and something junior. It's right. Like the default is assumed to be the more complex version, which makes sense. Like if you put adult on a box, people assume that it's, dirty, or it's rude, or it's sexual, or it's violent. I don't know.
Right.
But if you say, if you've got difference and difference kids, then clearly different based on those two titles, the kid is like a variant. It's been presented that way by the publisher. But you're right. It is, maybe it should be difference, advanced.
Yeah.
Maybe that would be like the better word.
I think if you put advanced, I think if TSR has taught us anything about Dungeons and Dragons, if you put advanced on it, then people don't buy it, or it hampers. It's a barrier to entry, isn't it? But then equally, putting kids on a box is a barrier to sales as well. That's interesting. I don't know. There must be a way.
Because Cinnabine Junior, even though, like I presented some of those cards as Yogi Party, because that's what it's really about. Simplification doesn't have to mean this is for kids or for infants or whatever. And I know a lot of older people who said, actually, I much prefer in a Bind Junior, which most of those cards don't really exist, but it's the junior redesign of the game that's now launched as Yogi. And
Yeah.
so, comparatively, the difference is you don't have to worry about the left and right, which, sure, and there are some cards that are repeated. There's no duplicate cards in the standard version, but there are some duplicate cards in a Bind Junior, and there's some motions and some voice things that you need to do for extra silliness. The general difficulty of the physicality is a little bit lower. The idea being that you're going to last a little bit longer. Rather than lasting 3 cards, you might last at least 5, 7 cards on when you're getting to know the game. But so many adults said, I prefer this. It's easier, it's
I can believe
funnier,
it.
and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Agricola has it right. I mean, maybe it's just Agricola and Agricola family version. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's just concept and concept family version, or a Yogi and Yogi family version. Why not? Why not? In
Or
fact,
party, but
or party.
yeah,
Yes, that's even better.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
even better. Yeah, for sure.
the concepts on Board Game Arena. I mean, typing is more effort than speaking, and I think
Always.
that if you're having guess after guess after guess, yes, it works as well as it could be expected to on Board Game Arena, but it does make it a little bit slower. It makes it a little bit less fun, for my opinion. Whereas there are games like Downforce, which I would actually rather play on Board Game Arena because it works out the maths for you. People's turns are hopefully going to be a tiny bit faster, and it's
Yeah, I can see that.
Adults have trouble with yogi because maybe physically they're struggling with it. It's nothing to do with the cognition. It's and see, I assume there's a missing N. That's one of our games I actually never play on Board Game Arena concept. I assume that's what you meant to say. But yes, sorry, that's me talking about my recent
No,
highlights and all that.
that's really interesting. That was an interesting aside. That I agree on a lot of that as well. And I think we can probably do more to. I think we should celebrate simplicity sometimes as well. I think we really should.
So, what was some of your recent highlights? What did you get up to yesterday?
Yesterday, for those that were watching yesterday, I said I was going to have a look at some of the cards and cards and the rules for Jerusalem, which is something that I'm working on with Tony Boydell and Julie on the other screen here. I do in fact have those cards and those rules, and I got quite into it last night, so I missed the Hereford session, but I tended to I was into it. I was into it quite a lot, and it's got quite interesting. I started with the rules and then went back to the cards, and it's good. There was a lot of walking around. There was a lot of walking around the house and walking around the garden, muttering to myself and thinking. But there was this is good. The rules are looking all right. I've got to have a look at the cards. This is going to take me well into Boxing Day, I think. But that's looking all right. That and a few games of Hearthstone and I looked
Your
up.
current addiction you mentioned.
It is my current addiction. It's absolutely true. You mentioned Alice in Borderlands as well, which was excellent. So I had I watched about the first 10-15 minutes of the first episode, and I thought, no, I'm going to stop this because I'm going to watch this for my daughter because she'll really appreciate it. But that's definitely been put on the list. And I watched a couple of episodes of The Cleaner.
So sometimes I will say that I read ahead on Wikipedia just to stop myself getting addicted, because also I want to know that it's going to come to a satisfying conclusion, because especially when it's 2 seasons, you're never sure, is this actually going to finish? And I couldn't find that, but I did watch a clip explaining the ending. So I'm like, yeah, it does actually end. And they kind of refer to the manga saying, yeah, they could make a 3rd season if they really wanted. But I think where they finished, it's actually better. So that sounds like it's a good ending. It's kind of just, as I say, it is super violent. So if you're not up for seeing someone's head explode, it's not like you see the super grisly bits, but it is very adult. I definitely wouldn't show it to anyone. Well, I wouldn't show it to anyone else's child. Let's put it that way. I might show it to my own if I knew them well enough to know that they wouldn't be terrified or negatively affected by it. But
It's all right, don't
anyway,
worry. No, it's
so
fine.
that's something that you're looking forward to. And anything else you want to say? Did you manage? Did you feel like a sense of achievement with these rules that you went through?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's
Awesome.
yeah. I mean, it's one of these things, isn't it? I mean, no game is ever complete, even after you publish it. It's never. I mean, that's just one step in the road. But this is looking good. This is looking like you could play it and have
Awesome.
some fun, and people could understand it, and generally sort of have a good time with it, which is cool. I've got a prototype set that I need to I'll get out onto the table tomorrow, but I need to do a few bits and pieces today, but we'll see how we go.
Now,
But no,
even
it's
though
good.
we've done this in a really relaxed way, and if anyone's watching this after the facts, this is where we're possibly going to start talking about redesign contests, because contests themselves are a brilliant thing. They're a little thing which is brilliant. I'm going to say, let's go back and forth and share reasons why contests, whether it be the redesign contest or any other thing, is a brilliant thing. I mean, what the most important thing for me is the limitation, the direction, and saying, you do this, and there's some restriction that means that you make something that you otherwise might not have ever thought to make. How about you?
That's excellent. For me, it's the I mean, it's the feedback. I mean, I said this yesterday. I mean, if you're going to get judged on something, hopefully they'll tell you what they liked, what they disliked about, and about some justification as to where you finished. That's the most important thing, because you can run through a set of ideas, you produce something, and then somebody who knows more about this than you says, okay, this is the bit I like, this is the bit I didn't like, this is why you placed where you did. Incredible.
Yeah, and I'm going to say bring it back to the redesign contest, because in the redesign contest we did get a good amount of feedback.
Yes.
I mean, after submitting my game, putting it in, then I got the chance to, well, go over to someone's house in Milton Keynes. I had to pay for my own travel, but then I got to go there, where there was Cara and Alan Paull and Matthew Dunstan and Brett Gilbert, and then they all played this game and they all gave some degree of feedback. Although Cara was trying to be a little bit less to do with it, but still, to have someone who's a professional in the game shop and three professional designers critique your game in front of you, that was really awesome.
Agreed. Absolutely. I mean, so the year before we went to Leisure Games and we played. Which there was a loads of us. We there was about, oh, crikey, what, 6, 7, 8 prototypes that were shortlisted for that we're going to have tables at Expo. So, but we all went to Leisure Games and we all played each other's games. And Alan and Cara and one of the other judges, I think, there was gave you feedback right there and then, and they'd also played them beforehand as well, so they had some written
So,
feedback from.
who were the judges for you again? Alan,
The judges were
Cara.
definitely Cara and Alan. Quinns from Shut Up and Sit Down was listed as being one of the judges, but pulled out of the competition before I think the judging got there. There was at least one other judge who was I think at Leisure Games and was
Ooh,
definitely
Michael Fox.
Sorry,
Michael Fox.
I'm
You
not
know,
sure.
Michael Fox, white person, bald
Yeah,
dog. You know, Michael
it
J.
could have
Fox.
been. Could have been. You know what? I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know who the other judges were. I mean, which is probably a terrible slight on them. But no,
Um,
I don't.
so,
Um,
yeah, let's actually explain these people. So, Cara, I don't have any photos, but Cara Gander is Leisure Games is a shop in London. It's not the biggest shop in terms of location or in terms of physical size, but there's a lot going on there. They have regular game nights. It's a really nice shop, and Cara Gander was one of the people who um, worked for that shop and was there. If you've watched this show before, you should know Alan Paull. Alan Paull talks to me every couple of weeks, and yeah, has designed such games as March of Progress and is a self-publisher for Surprise Terror Games. And Matthew Dunstan and Brett Gilbert have co-designed a lot of games, including Chocolate Factory, Elysium. Matthew Dunstan's.
Brett did all the Lego games.
Oh yeah, Brett did all the Lego games. So yeah, there you go. So these are who these people are for people who don't know them. But yeah, it was really nice having this wealth of knowledge kind explaining all these things. Excite says Matthew Dunstan is the nicest guy in all of board gaming.
He is a nice guy, it's true.
I'm glad you didn't say the nicest person, because if you'd said the nicest person, my envy monster might have inflamed slightly.
No, Matt's cool and knows his stuff as well.
Then I would have been like, why am I not nice enough? But maybe that's the reason that's not nice enough, because I'm too competitive.
Where were we? So yeah, no, I don't think I do know that. I mean, Brett was certainly around when we were demonstrating the game that became Flicky Spaceships at Expo. That I certainly remember.
So yeah, you were talking about your experience of showing off all of these things in the shop with a whole bunch of people, and presumably the judges were rotating around the tables. Did you get a chance to see each other's things as well?
Yes, absolutely. So the judges were made sure they played every game, and obviously the other designers or design teams made up the extra players for the game and sort of gave some feedback as well. So I played about two or three other games while I was there, and I think our game was last up, and we played that. We played that and we got some of the feedback from Cara. Ben wasn't there, but he and
Ben
Cara,
being Cara's partner.
That's right. They had they'd written some stuff down, and they provided some feedback like that. One of the interesting things about that was because there were really sort of no rules. It was really sketchy. So as we said yesterday, we got a box that was overstock at a distributor and was given to us for £10. And for the year I entered, it was a game called Wilderness by the Fricks brothers, and you get this box and you have to make another game out of it. And that, I don't know what it was like for you, Bez, but that was pretty much the whole rules. So Sam and I didn't really know what to do. So we thought, well, all right, we've got this stuff. Let's use all of it. So we used all of it. So we used, we made the, so we had, I did a bit of digging yesterday. So we had these fantastic triangular hex sheets.
Yes.
So that was essentially the board for us. And in Wilderness, the original game, they'll fit together like this in a sort of a trek, sure. And you trek through the wilderness. But you can also set them if you so desire, you can set them to make a hex, a giant hexagon map, which we did. And then we used the cardboard sprues from that. We cut down and made into sort of a big edge, sort of 3 or 4 layers thick, so that when you flick the spaceships against the edge, they sort of ricocheted around the board.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were really handcrafting and reshaping the components you had.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and Wilderness came with everything as well.
Hello, Matt.
Good morning, Matt. It came with a die. It came with a spinner. It came with all sorts of stuff, which we used everything. We're like, well, if it's there, we've got to redesign with it. Let's put the whole lot in. So I rolled up to Leisure Games with it, and some of the feedback from Alan, very very gently, because Alan is a gentleman, said you don't need to use everything. You could perhaps sort of trim this down and make it a little bit more streamlined. And we went, we don't have to use everything. Oh, right. And so then we took out the spinner, and we took out some of the other, we took out the dice, and we took out some other bits and pieces.
I want to play the version that has everything, the version with the
it really was quite nuts. It was it was cardboard, and it was cardboard and glue with a stick-on spinner, and it honestly did have everything. I don't think I've got. I don't have any of the original prototype stuff, but
We've
But there is some
talked.
interesting bits and pieces.
So going back a step, because I don't think we really explored why the redesign contest was brilliant. Let's continue doing a bit of back and forth, because this ties really directly into having this inspiration. Because sure, the game with the spinner and all of this extra stuff might not be the game that you ended up with, but it took you in a direction, it took you on a journey that you would never have encountered. And
right.
I think that one other really nice thing about the redesign contest was that it felt like there was a small degree of gravitas. Like, sure, the gravitas can always be more, but there was a small prize ceremony because it's in this convention of 20, well, more than 10,000 people at the time. It was relatively smaller compared to today. And having a small collection of, I don't know how many it was. For me, it was basically 50 people waiting to hear who had won. And that was an exciting moment. A whole bunch of people say, oh, we'll find out who's won. And so it's like a proper jury. They've gone off to decide themselves. And just for the record, I know you said that you had a public vote, but we didn't have a public vote. Maybe that they took it out for you. So
That's
when I entered, it was just a bunch of us will go away and decide. And I think it was literally, I remember Alan was definitely one of the proper final judges. Michael Fox, publisher of, designer of such games as Mega City Oceania. Snap, Mega City Oceania, and Holding On, Trouble Life of Billy Kerr. And yeah, there were other judges as well, and so it was, and there was a representative from UK Games Expo, possibly.
That's possibly true, actually. Yes. Now that rings a bell. Yeah, that does ring a bell. There must have been, maybe it was Richard himself, Richard Denning from himself. I don't think so, though. There's probably somebody from UK Games Expo there. But also, going back to that, going back to that, you get to demonstrate games to the public at an enormous games exposition, which is fantastic, really, because if you go to somewhere like Playtest, which is amazing. If you're not a Playtest, you really should be. But Playtest, everyone listening, it's very, very cool, and Rob does a great job in organising those Playtest meets in London. It's other game designers all playing each other's games, whereas this is the public, and you can just sort of like almost sort of grab people off from the street and get, come and play this. And there were announcements over the tannoy and like go and play in the redesign competition. And you got people playing that perhaps wouldn't normally sit down and play a prototype game and giving you fairly good feedback. It is interesting that you didn't have any the public feedback didn't play a part in that. It was just a committee decision, because it did for us. And I think we probably skewed the system on that one, quite possibly, because we got a lot of people through playing A World Destroyed while we were at Expo. That was about a day and a half of non-stop demoing, which was one of my problems with the competition. But we were there for we're there from early till late on the Saturday and on the Sunday morning as well. Basically doing nothing but playing A World Destroyed back to back, game after game after game, for about sort of 40 minutes each. But
I would really like to investigate that. But before we get into what your problems were, carrying on about what's brilliant about it, I think that for me, in the following year, they said, well, this is your table. You can have this table for as long as you want. You're not allowed to show off other games. This table is for you to just show off this one game. But I had my table on the Saturday, and I think on the Sunday it was like, well, there's no reason why you have to be on this table, but if you would enjoy being on this table, you can be. And I think not having the crowd thing means that it was 100% opportunity, 0% obligation. Do you know what I mean?
No, I do know what you mean. I think that's a huge step from the previous year as well.
But is there any other praise that you want to give, or shall we move on?
No, one final thing is that it gives you a deadline. which is which is great because it really it's a bit of an acid test, isn't it? It's like, do you want to do this or not? If you do, then you've got to get this in by by the 30th of by the 30th of December, 30th of January, whatever it was, and in whatever state it's in. So make sure that from whatever state it's there. If you're serious about this, then you're putting it in. You're making your entry at that point. And that's good because it really focuses the mind. And otherwise, these things can noodle off into the middle distance quite easily. So yeah, it's that's nice. I like having a little bit of pressure is always good, especially if you're sort of you paid your £10 and you're like, right, well, I've either bought an expensive box of bits or I've actually bought myself an opportunity to do something amazing here. So no, it's good.
Yeah, 100%. Because as you said at the start of the show, games can carry on for years or decades. I mean, the truth is that yes, the game now known as Last Bug Standing in the Circle of Doom is a tiny bit better than it was in 2016, let alone how it was in 2015 when the contest ended. It has improved a little bit.
No, same with Flicky Spaceships. It's an improved game over World Destroyed.
It's like we could keep it for like another 10 years, and maybe in the next 10 years we'd have, oh, wait a minute, maybe that. But at some point, you've just got to release it and hope that people have fun with it. Yeah. And it's similar with Redesign. Frankly, if I didn't have the obligation to get it all done for, I think it was the end of the year, it was either Christmas or the end of the year, but either way, it was like it had to be with Leisure Games. And I was running late enough that I couldn't just post it because it might not arrive. So I had to take the underground. Thankfully, I lived in London at the time. I made my first ever trip to the shop. I had it. I handed it over. I said, okay, that's all good? And the person said, yep, that's all good. We'll make sure it gets to Cara. I was like, great. And fantastic. We're all done. And so that was how I entered right on the last day possible.
No, fine.
And it got done. And that's the thing.
It got done. That's right. It got done.
As I always say, please do comment, ask questions from Like Follow. We are going to talk just about the UK Games Expo redesign contest, specifically the two that we entered. I'm not sure if there even was a third one.
I don't think there was.
Because I know that they launched it, but I'm not sure they got enough things back for it to actually run. Do you know what I mean?
That's interesting. That's interesting. I'm not sure because did you have the Gnomes of Zavandor as your bonus game?
We had Gnomes of Zavandor, and I actually officially entered the Wilderness one, but I never finished my game. And at that point, it was like, oh, I didn't manage to finish it. Well, next year I will just finish it. That's what I'm aiming for, just to finish it, and that itself will be an achievement. And not only did I do that, but I came a runner-up and made something that's still worth publication, which is pretty cool. But
jolly well done, that's true.
For the third contest, I do remember it had launched. There was another game to buy with your £10 deposit, not £10 deposit, £10 money.
£10.
You paid £10. You got this physical game. You were paying slightly over the odds, given that it was a dredge game, but like you could easily download the things, and frankly, then you've got like a reasonably priced game. Like it's one of those things where, frankly, they're just like selling these at a loss. Probably this is like a 40 quid game, where they've probably bought it for like 20 quid or something off the distributor, and then.
But the warehousing costs get to you in the end, so it's actually better to get it out of the warehouse.
100%. One of those things where it's just on clearance. But what you're paying for is then once you've made it, there's going to be a little bit of support, a little bit of like the judging, the feedback, all of that stuff. And that was brilliant. But then again, thinking about how many people actually finish the game and bring it back, I'm not sure if the third year ever actually ran to completion.
I don't think it did, but and the year after that, did they replace it with their Wyvern's Lair thing where you
Yes,
pitched it to
they were
a
trying.
bunch
They
of
kept. I mean,
designers.
UK Games Expo as a whole does. I say did, but the truth is they do. They continue to keep bringing in new things for not just established publishers and established designers, but yeah,
For
you
everyone.
can listen to Ignacy Cevicek coming along and talking about design, or you
Yes.
can listen to me to give you some of Board Game Design 101 lessons if you think that. Although now I've kind of put everything up on the internet, it's like, why would you listen to me at a convention? Or I guess because I do it in a slightly more streamlined way, rather because I've streamed for like thousands and thousands of hours and probably don't want to listen to all of that.
No, it's true.
And
It's
hello, CD. Merry Yuletide to you as
it's
well.
you.
But yeah, UK Games Expo do continue to bring new stuff. As you mentioned, the Wyvern's Lair, where people brought any game they want, and it's, will you publish my game? That's a really cool thing that they had.
I think I did the first one of those. I think I did the first Wyvern's Lair with a game, a game called The Abandoned Garden, which was about invasive plants moving across an abandoned garden. But that one didn't get anywhere. But I did get a few laughs out of that one. I think I enjoyed the presentation more than anything else. But it was all good.
But yes, I am always enjoying the show. A bit sick. Hopefully, we'll be better tomorrow. I will probably venture outside just to, see how it gets on. CD says, we're just winding down. Everyone has headed home. Cats fed, bedtime. Bearing in mind, obviously, CD's, it must be about 11 p.m. I hope you are having a wonderful time in the future. But, so redesign contest. Let's start from the start, and maybe we can just go through the experience for both of us and compare and contrast and all that stuff.
Sure.
So, how did you hear about it? For myself, it was at UK Games Expo. I think it was probably in the magazine that I saw, oh, that sounds fun. I should do that. I like the idea of designing games. This sounds like an approachable way to do it. I'll get in on that. How did you hear about it?
It's a really good question. I went back through just going back through my emails, but I can't. You know what? I don't know. I think it may have been a Facebook post. I think so. It was, or it may have been on the. More likely, it was on the UK Games Expo mail out, because they used to do a sort of a newsletter mail out. I'm pretty sure it was on that. You went up and you had to be there it gave you a certain location you needed to be in order to pick up your game, because doing the first one there were obviously nobody from the year before. There's nobody from the year before there to pick it up, so it was just meeting. It was just the organizers behind a trestle table with a load of games, and they gave you a there was a sort of a 15-minute talk about what was expected from it, and then there was a huge rush forward with people waving £10 notes to get a copy of the game. That was it, really. I mean, that was it. That's how we got into this. I mean, Sam and I were both up at Expo anyway, and we sort of said, "Do we fancy this?" Yes. Okay, let's do this. That was in 2013. And so Sam sort of bullied his way to the front, being the sort of oversized 1.2 scale giant that he is, and we got a copy of the game.
I mean, it wasn't so oversold that you had to push your way to the front or anything. I mean, I was there, and I do remember, like, it was gone within like 10 minutes. But if you were there at the appropriate time, you would be able to pay and get your entry fee. It wasn't like, oh, I need to wrestle all these people.
No,
I got one of the boxes of the Wilderness. I'll probably put it into recycling or something within the next few months, because as much as it's a memento, I can't keep all this stuff.
No, I mean, yeah.
Do you even have that virtual box?
I don't know if you're like me, but like I've got there's just a huge pile of prototyping material sat down to my right hand side, and you can.
So we both got this. I mean, it's probable that we actually met each other at the time, even though we didn't know each other. So it's probable that like we were within a few meters of each other getting these
Quite
boxes.
possible, yeah.
And then we went off, we did our own design. I don't want to talk too much about that, but like maybe if you want to summarize it in like half a minute, like
Okay.
between
Yeah.
doing that and the submission, how was that for you?
It was just me and Sam meeting mostly at Sam's house, playing around with components and putting things together to make a dexterity game. We were at the time, we had different jobs and we used to be able to collaborate a lot more online than we do now. So we used Google Docs quite a lot. So we had Google Docs open for the rules, and we had collaborative documents in Google Docs for the cards, and there was a spreadsheet of what each one of the cards did, and that was it. It was mostly collaborative, and so when we met up
And that was between you and Sam Mercer.
Yes, it was between
and
me
I
and Sam Mercer.
do remember that. I think you're right. We forgot to mention Rob Harris, who's in charge of Playtest UK.
Rob
Who
may well
kind
have been
of
involved in the
founded
judging
it.
team.
And
Yeah.
I think that when I brought my game based on the Wilderness, and mine was actually also a dexterity game, interestingly, but I had the frame, and you had to throw things into different parts of the frame.
Oh, okay.
And so you were throwing things from like a little distance. But anyway, Rob said, "Oh, this is good." I was encouraging me to enter, but it did feel, I will say, a little bit isolated, because I think that's one thing that the Board Game Geek contests, for example, have going for them, where you feel like, oh wow, I'm connected to all these other contestants, and there's something nice about that, even going up to the moment of submission. Whereas comparatively, I see it as, yeah, the redesign contest and also my own LDEC design contest, unless people actually go searching for other people to work with, there's nothing, no system built in to say, hey, here's a lot of other people that you could work with. Hey, put your thing up onto Boards Game Geek. Partially because that, in my case, that anonymization is a big part of it. And maybe if you are having any serious prize, it kind of had, I don't know, it's difficult, but would you agree with that? Would you agree that that is a slight downfall, and I'm not sure there's any way to improve that?
I'm not sure either, because it is a competition after all, right? So
Yeah.
you are. I mean, it's an interesting. It's possibly an interesting competition as to what you're actually competing for in the redesign competition, which is another issue. But it is a competition. You are trying to win a prize. So whilst you can have
shall we talk about the
collaboration.
prize? I mean, the first prize was basically 1 year of being allowed, having Alan Paull doing a mentorship.
That's basically it. We won a friend, which is I've never won a friend in a competition before, but Alan was fantastic. We had about 6 calls with Sam, and I had about 6 calls with him. But it was interesting because it became it's interesting, and I don't want to sort of dominate it with this, because I'd love to hear what Alan's point of view is more than anything else. But it became fairly clear that what the expectation was, that Sam and I were going to want to become game designers and have a published game out of this, and so that we would then put sell sheets together, go to Essen, go to Nuremberg, kickstart the game that came out of the redesign competition, and then they would help us get this up in up at Expo next year or whatever else. And the following year, when I was up at Expo and ran into Cara, she said, "Why aren't you here with a stand?" And it's an interesting thing, because there were various points about it that I suppose it shows the gulf between professional game people who are in the games industry and people who aren't in the games industry, because there were points in that. I remember Alan saying, actually it's quite cheap to get out to Nuremberg. You can get out there for, you can do the whole trip for £500, and me thinking, yeah, for £500 I could take my family for a week in Dorset. I know which one I prefer to do. Or and Sam said I could get a new dining room table with £500. It's horrible, isn't it? I mean, what are you going to do? It's like, we can't afford to spend £500 to do this. We can't afford to spend any money to get this published. Neither of us have got the time to run a Kickstarter. And whilst your advice is great, and it's been really lovely talking to you, there is no tangible we kind of know what we had to do in order to get a game published, right? It's just that none of us have got the time or the money to do it. That's the cold hard facts of it. The only reason that Flicky Spaceships exists is because somebody, a couple of people who are ex-Warlord, were willing to set up their own game company and take a financial risk on the game. The fact that it won the redesign competition probably helped us get published 4 years later, and that's lovely, and that's great. But what did we win? We won 6 phone calls, and what did we lose? We lost a day and a half at Expo. And we spent a lot of time designing a game that was probably not particularly publishable, but we did it to win a competition. We did it because it was fun. And right up until the point we got to Expo, Sam and I had an absolute blast with that redesign competition. When we got to Expo, things got very stressful very quickly, and we realized that we'd essentially paid tickets to come to, for what is a holiday for both Sam and I. We just sacrificed a day and a half of our holiday to pitch a game that might not ever see the light of day, and it's the last time that Sam and I have ever entered a competition. We found it. We found it a tough one. We really did at Expo there. And I think I said to Mike Nudd, who was on yesterday, bless him, he said, but you won that competition. Are you going to do it again? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. It was awful. It was a hugely stressful experience that ended up leaving a bit of a bad taste in our mouths, actually. But we came out of it stronger. Sam and I came out of it stronger, and we're great friends. And we've done some fantastic design work later, and hopefully we learned a lot about each other. But yeah. Hugely stressful experience at the end, as Brett will probably attest, actually, because I think he was there walking around the redesign arena whilst I was absolutely seething and fuming with rage at Sam because he hadn't turned up on time, and I was hugely stressed and not in a good frame of mind. But yeah, I have apologized to Brett since for that one, but I think it's I'm definitely sure he will still remember what sort of mood I was in on that Saturday morning. Hey,
it is really interesting because you're right. £500 to go to Nuremberg, if you're trying to see it as an opportunity to get a couple of games published as something that will bring you a financial return, is absolutely not that much. But if you're doing it in a hobbyist basis, yes, it is a significant outlay. And you're right, there is this gulf between people who do Kickstarters and say, oh, I don't really spend any money. I'm just spending a few £100 doing this. And it's like, that's a lot of money. And then I said to someone, like, you are actually spending a lot of money on your marketing. And they said, yeah, but what about you? You spent so much at UK Games Expo last year. To which, yes, I did. I do spend a lot as a business. And I think that's a slight difference because, yeah, I don't think for your, if you have the money to burn, if you have the money to say, hey, I could get nothing out of it, then go for it. But if your approach is to say, I want to just get the game published just for the idea of having a game out there with my name on it, and if you're going to, there's no guarantee that any of this will come back. And I am slightly risk averse, yes. But at this point, when I go to conventions, I'm not only promoting myself as a person who continues to make games, and hopefully people will continue to be interested in my future stuff. I mean, the fact that, sorry to blow my own trumpet, but like I saw one of my recent Kickstarters became one of the top 10 Kickstarters as decided by.
I saw that. Well done for that one. That's fantastic.
And
I did see
since then, like, probably there are like a couple of people who are now following me on Kickstarter who weren't before, who are being like, yeah, I'm going to make sure I check out what the next thing is. It doesn't mean they're automatically going to buy it, but it means that means that I do continue to grow this fan base and continue to gain visibility, both for my self publishing and also for the opportunity to show stuff in an early stage and then show it off to publishers, because this is how I plan on making money. And yes, a lot of the money that I'm getting through consultation or everything is, and yes, I am kind of time rich in some ways. That yes, I am devoting my time to this. I don't have a family, and by that notion, I am incredibly fortunate to not have a family, to be able to focus on doing this, to say yes, I'm going to all the conventions.
Sure.
That in 2015, after I launched in a bind, now known as Yogi, in August. Like after I launched it in 2015, for the remaining few months and for all of 2016, my approach was, if I can go to a convention and come back and have lost less than a tenner, it was worth going. Because if I lose less than a tenner, then I'm probably going to gain more than two sales. Because if I sell, let's say, 20 games, I believe that my game is good enough that I'm going to sell a few more games after that.
Mhm.
And I definitely think that that's coming from a place of privilege, whilst I wasn't in a cash rich place of privilege. Like I was very time rich, and you're right. Um, I don't know, and there is this maybe expectation to say, hey, we're going to get some people to become publishers. But it's not just that they don't know the things. It's not just that they haven't had the experience. It's that, like you say, this sounds really, really harsh, but maybe if you've got a family and a full-time job, then maybe you're just not going to be able to be a game designer, like
It's
really.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's
Well,
harsh, but it's actually
sorry,
true.
you are a game designer, and I don't want to. Oh, you're not
You,
going to
I
be.
think you can be. I think by which I interpreted that as regularly published game designer, which is absolutely fine because it's
Like
yeah because
you can't. It's going to. You're going to really struggle to turn this into a business, I guess is
yeah,
what I'm
right,
saying.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's you just have to do it in a different. You have to do it in a different way. You have to be lucky. You have to have an ear on social media to find it for people who are actually looking for finished stuff and published stuff, and particularly stuff that's relevant to their publishing interests. That's fine. And then and pitch when you can. When I go when I mean I still pitch games when I go up to Expo. um I did this year. It's just not something that I want to go to Expo to do. But if I'm there and I'll
Mm.
take a game and I'll take an hour out of my convention to go around and pitch one or two games to one or two people, that's fine. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then I've lost an hour and not much else, right?
Whereas, like,
But
I
yeah,
went to Spiel, and for me, it was like I think I had about 10 meetings with 10 different publishers, and that obviously eats into the experience quite a lot. But I do still have time, don't get me wrong, to go around Spiel and to play other people's games, which is amazing.
sure.
But as a person who wants to do this full time, you could argue that I was slightly lacking, because I look at other people and a number of meetings that they had, and I think, you know
Mm.
what, I could have done more. And yeah, for Nuremberg, like I really could be doing a lot more in terms of setting up meetings and making sure that I go there with something to show, if you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
that's it. Which is just a side of doing this that holds no interest to me at all, I'm afraid. I would much rather be designing games than getting them published. If I get, I'd rather spend the time just doing one or two things very, very well, and then maybe publishing one game every 5+ years. And that for me is enough. That's fine. I'm not in it for I don't have to support. I don't have to support myself on my on board games. Thankfully. I have massive respect for those that do. I really do. It's just not something. It's just not a skill I have, and not something I wish to do. Maybe when I retire, yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's when I'm more time rich, and yeah, for sure, that might be something to do. But again, it's something that it's something that it's something. As I say, I have a massive respect for those that do it. It's just not something that I wish to do.
But it doesn't make you less of a game designer. I think that look, let's look at books and writing, okay? I mean, I think that there are going to be so many fascinating short stories and so many beautiful poems written by so many people around the world that just aren't compiled and aren't ever published and shared in any meaningful way. I mean, sure, in a similar way, like you can put those things up on the internet, you could put a board game up on the internet for people to print and play and do
Yep.
all that. But realistically, people aren't going to play it. I mean, I had a free to print and play game, and I told people about it on Wednesday. I said, "Hey, this is a game. Go and check it out, please." And based on Board Game Geek, still no one's played it, and it's got like 0 ratings, and that's a bit sad. Whereas, anything where I've just sold it, I know that people have actually played it, and so that's a very different situation. I think that for sure there are possibly going to be a lot of lost games, and in the same
Almost
way
certain.
that there's a lot of lost writing, but that's going to happen regardless of whether it gets published or not. It's not a case of publish 1,000 copies of this, people will obviously get you know it's all get make its way through the zeitgeist. It's all spread its tendrils into everyone's brain, and everyone will be aware that there is this Risk meets Subutio game going on, which would be lovely for people to understand. Wow, there's this cool thing and this cool thing and this cool thing. But along with that, partially because yes, there wants to be a level of polish that comes out of the resources that you might have. But even if you're able to make the best thing, I mean, it seems really difficult, and I don't think that's a single contest is ever able to do that. And maybe it sounds like that's why the redesign contest kind of was set up to fail. If it was really designed to take people from I'm into board games to I am now selling my own board games, and if it was designed to bring around this wave of fresh game designers selling their stuff at UK Games Expo, whilst that might have been a lovely dream, as you say yourself, the money and the time required are something that not everyone wants to or should feel like they have to invest.
Indeed, I agree with that. I think that's probably why I think that is probably why it only lasted 2 years. And I think it's probably why the Wyvern's Lair is possibly a better option for it if you're actually getting people to pitch completed or fully reasonably well-fledged game ideas to publishers. If you can get publishers into the room, that's probably a better plan. That's probably a better plan.
I mean,
but I know, going back to what you were saying though about niche game design and people finding this sort of stuff, I love Japanese games for this reason. So the Tokyo Games Market is full. I've never been. It's the one thing on my list that I really must do. Having been to most of the other stuff out there, but you have people who make 100 beautiful games, handcraft them. The original Tokyo Highway was handcrafted.
You mean 100 copies of a single game?
Yeah, and you take it to the market, and people buy it, play it, and you do get a zeitgeist out of it. You just go, oh crikey, look, this is absolutely brilliant. I got this from the games market. It was handmade and it looks great. And there are many games that have come out of that that particular sort of road to market that have done very well. Tokyo Highway being one, Love Letter being the other one, obviously. And the various other incarnations of that sort of stuff.
But for every two that you can name, how many are
Yeah,
there
loads.
that didn't make it?
Yeah, for sure, loads, absolutely. But that doesn't mean to say the designers didn't have fun doing it or selling it. Yeah, you're right. You are effectively you're shooting blindly and hoping to hit a target. That's fine, but you could get picked up by a bigger designer, or you could just get your game design out there as a sort of sense of catharsis to say, okay, it is published. It might only be 100 handmade copies, but it's published and it's out there. Even if you keep 10 of those copies and use them as giveaways to publishers to try and get you published, it's still probably worth it. And you don't know where those 100 games, whose hands those 100 games are going to end up in. So it's still worth it, and it's still worth doing that. If Sam and I do anything to do this, it will be something like that. You'll find us in the future, in the next 10 years, maybe with a stand at Expo with 10, 15 copies of 10, 15 different games, all handmade with all handmade and printed in cardboard and wherever else, and we'll flog them from the stand, and that'll be us.
And I think there's something really nice about. I mean, my Bessie bargain bags. I was going to. No, I'm not going to. Oh, there's one. So this is my copy. You can't buy it. A game about cute comical creatures and trying to identify them after some makes noises. So I mean, the fact that I'm able to. The fact that I'm like recently I've gone back to doing 50 copies because I feel like even with 50 copies, that's enough to test the market. Like at UK Games Expo, sure, it might mean like the first time that I did a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after some mixed noises, it basically sold out by 9:50 on Saturday. So I could have definitely brought 100 and sold out. But if I've got multiple games and there's more than one thing that's being demoed, 50 of each means that people get to choose. I get to see what people's favorites are. And I get to sort of see what's going on with everyone. And with 50 copies, sure, keep maybe one for yourself, one for your mum, one for your best friend, and a couple for Christmas presents, and 5 for publishers. So maybe you only sell 40, but that's still 40 that people are engaged with.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's still enough for people to take it. And I think it's giving people something physical that they've had to spend money for does mean that they're much more likely to actually play it when we go back to the idea of print and play. And it's all about why are you doing this? Because if you don't have aspirations to make money doing it, well, maybe you aren't going to spend the time or money to do, what needs to be done in order to make thousands of copies. But
no, that's fine. You can still make a great game, even if you don't. Even if you only sell 10 copies, it doesn't diminish that.
And it's kind of sad in that, there's all these amazing creative works, but then it's no more sad than the fact that there's so many paintings that there's only one copy of that a digital reproduction just does not work, because there's all these black paintings that I've heard about where, I don't know if you're aware of this, pixels on a computer monitor are just not different enough to have the difference in shades. So it's done in a really, your eyes need to be relatively normal, so based on human vision. So if you go up to it in real life, you will be able to see differences, and you'll be able to see a lot of textures, and you'll be able to see a lot of differences. But then if you take a photo of it and try to share it on social media, it's just so high fidelity, it will just look like a black square.
Interesting.
And
I haven't seen that. I should look that up. That sounds fantastic.
But like, even though that's an extreme example, you've still got sculpture. I mean, having a video of a sculpture or having a photograph of a sculpture is no substitute for actually experiencing it in real life and being able to wander around and look
how
up
the light falls on it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And similarly, hearing about the game, reading the rules is never a substitute for actually playing the game.
Agreed.
And there's just, yeah, why are you doing it? And that, yeah, we've really gone off a massive tangent. It's been
No,
interesting. I
no,
don't,
it's been fantastic. I could,
go,
yeah. This is the sort of conversation I love to have. I mean, I think that don't think people think about the sort of like the philosophy of this sort of stuff. Weirdly, I don't know we're sort of scratching the surface, but it's rare that you actually sit down with somebody else that's had similar experiences and just go, yeah, this happened. And go, oh yeah, sure. But what if that happened? And like, yeah, but what if this happened?
let's,
It's good.
shall we bring it back to the redesign contest and just have a very quick, so compare contrast, which I said we were going to do like half an hour ago. So after the design, I was doing it on my own, but again, I did have the benefit of working with Ben Neumann. When I say working with, we were playtesting together. So I might have said, oh, I've made 2 different games for this redesign contest. One of them was an economic game. It was vaguely similar to 18XX. One of them was a lighter economic game. It was vaguely similar to Splendor, but yeah, it had more numbers probably because Gnomes of Salvador had numbers on it. Right. Anyway, so then Ben Neumann said, "Yeah, this is cool, but it doesn't really excite me. It feels like a lot of other games that already exist. But on this one picture, the gnome has a map that kind of looks like a board. What if this gnome was playing a game with the other gnomes?" And that was like the thing that sparked. I thought, okay, what if you move something and then the way that this moves affects that the way the thing on the second path moves and then affects the way the third path moves? And what's okay, maybe if these 2 things match then, and they were 3 levels of things. Like the first one was done from the sprue, so there were 9 directions. Like, well, yeah, there were 9 spaces. You don't use the middle bit. The other 8 are the compass direction. The second bit was made out of the gem tiles, which were flippable, and then the third one was made out of some sort of resources that were in the game because
That's
those
cool.
were. And so I submitted it. I went to the thing. It sounds like you just posted it, and my experience of playtesting was going to the house, a few other people. There were other designers there, like who had entered the contest, but we never actually played each other's games, which I think was a slight. I would have preferred it. Obviously, maybe Leisure Games wasn't available, or Kara's house wasn't big enough to have everyone's game set up at the same time. But it would have been nice to have like a mini playtest day where it was, this is the time for your own slots, but if you want, hang around and you'll get to try everyone else's stuff. I would have been really interested to try out everyone else's thing if they had wanted that. But yeah, from that, I got given a little bit of feedback, which was, you've tried to make this a 2 to 4 player game, but maybe it's really just a 2-player game. And that was the main thing that I got as a feedback. And also, you've proved that you can redesign things. Now, feel free to actually change some of the numbers. You don't have to be stuck with the numbers that they started off with, because I wasn't doing anywhere near as crafting as you. I was the level. I'd literally just use the components as they are, if you know what I mean, and use literally nothing else. So
yeah, we got stuck into them. We got we got stuck in with the craft knives. We did all sorts of stuff with them. We didn't quite take a saw to any of the wooden pieces, but we certainly had a good go at the cardboard. But yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, how would you contrast your experience to mine? I mean, it sounds vaguely
pretty similar, to be honest. I mean, we met up at Leisure Games and we played each other's games, but that was about it. But yeah, we did post it. We posted the original design back in, and then we met at Leisure Games. I think we posted the design back in the January. We met at Leisure Games in the March, I think, and then we had from March until June to get the prototypes working and polished. because they gave us the prototypes back at Leisure Games. We then went back and then we had those extra sort of three-ish months to refine them before Expo, which led Sam to having the board and me to having the rest of the game when we finally got to Expo. But yeah.
And speaking of getting to Expo, so I don't think UK Games Expo was 3 days at that time. I think it might have only been 2 days. I don't know what. Can you remember?
I don't know. It might have been 2. I can't remember. No, I think it was 3. Or was it not the official? It might not have been an official Friday, but I always used to turn up on the Friday evening anyway.
Yeah. I mean, you could turn up on the Friday, and obviously there would be people ready to play games. Like now, you can turn up on Wednesday and
Thursday, Wednesday for the setup. Yeah, I know it's getting.
I'll always be there on Wednesday, and I'm not the only person. It's not just me and people that tell us, like other people who've come in from out of town.
Sure.
And if they're setting up on the Thursday, they're going to be on the Wednesday. But sure, yeah, it's kind of been spreading.
Yeah, it's spread over, isn't it? Yeah, I know. I was up there from Thursday this year, and I will be again next year. So yeah, it's good fun. It's good. I wouldn't go if I didn't love it. But it is great.
I'm fairly, unless someone tells me otherwise, and I'm not 100% sure on this, but I'm 90% sure that it was just 2 days, and we were told, okay, you can be here. Here's a stand. You can have this for as long as you want. And I did stay at the stand, but unlike you, there was never any obligation to get votes or to get people to say something about the game or to do anything. It was purely just here, have a table if you want it, and show off your game if you want to on this table. That's what this table is for. And at the end of the Saturday, he said, do we have this table for the Sunday? What's going on? And they said, well, you aren't allowed to show off your other games, but because this table is for the redesign area, but if you want to come back, then you can. And I think on the Sunday for me, whereas the Saturday, we were all there was a nice buzz, and I did take like 15 minutes to wander around and at least look at everyone else's games, which was the first time that I had seen some of them. And that was nice. But yeah, being on my own, it was stressful because every minute that I left the stand was a minute that someone might have been there and looking for the game. It was actually well advertised. So people were constantly coming, and I got to play my game constantly all throughout the day. And someone actually puts up a photo somewhere on social media saying, hey, I played this person's game, and they seemed really excited that I was the first person that beat them. And this was around 3 o'clock. So yeah, I don't let people win my games. And so someone, I don't know whether it's because they played particularly well or I was a bit tired at that point. But yeah, I really enjoyed that day. Even though, yes, it is stressful running a stand literally just on your own, I think that on the Sunday, I did feel some sense of obligation of, should I do this? Well, if I don't do it, that's an opportunity that I'm missing up. But then I think I went onto the table for maybe an hour, and then I realized, you know what, I'm just too tired for this. And I don't want to go away having seen literally nothing else of the expo.
Right.
So I wandered around and I spent the bulk of Sunday actually checking out what else is there, because there was never any obligation to do it. And so that was really nice. We did get tickets to UK Games Expo.
We did get exhibitor tickets, which was nice, which is fair.
Like obviously we have to pay for the accommodation and everything ourselves.
The ticket cost is not the bar to entry at Expo. It's the hotel cost and traveling there for sure. Yeah. It's but it was nice though. I mean, it was nice to have exhibitor passes. That's quite nice. Which is all good.
Yeah, it sounds like your experience was a lot more feeling of obligation. I need to get these votes. How did that audience vote work? Can you remember?
It was part of it. I can't remember exactly what the criteria were, but certainly you had feedback forms that were that were given to you, and they were on the tables, and anyone who tested the game was asked to fill in the feedback form about what they thought, and then they were collected in by us, by the designers, and then you handed those back over to one of the members of the judging staff at the end of the day. And because our game was relatively quick at about 45 minutes, and the rules explanation was really fast. It's like take the spaceship, flick it, where it ends up, you pick the resource, spend the resources on the cards. Any questions? Let's go, bang. And that was it was that sort of pace that you could do it with. We got through a lot of people. There were two of us tagging in and out for the entire day, non-stop.
If there's two of you, it more than doubles your energy, I think.
I think so. I mean, I don't think I dread to think what it'd been like doing it on your own, but it was there was a constant stream of people coming in. We were looking at, because if you had there were usually 3 players there, so you'd have a 4-player game with one of the designers, or if there was only 2, then we'd both play, and one of us would switch out if another person sort of like came up and started looking. So yeah, there was that, and we handed over a stack of feedback forms at the end of the day, at the end of the 2-day. Each day, and then the judges made a decision on the Sunday, and in the prize giving at the end of Expo, we found out that we'd won. So that was, but by that stage, I think the pair of us were pretty exhausted. So yeah, we're like, okay, we won. Really, we got some phone calls from Alan. That'll be cool.
Talking about cooking for board games, Sates is serving up some loaded baked potato soup. Price an oink-sized game per serving.
Yeah, all right. That seems good, actually. Yeah, for an oink game, yeah. Seems all right.
So it sounds like the wind was just taken out of your sails, and
it was.
I didn't win. Just to reiterate, I was a runner-up. Marta Borowiecki. No, is it Borowiecka? Because in Polish it's a little bit weird how the I know that it's either Ka or Ki, that's masculine or feminine, and C is both combined. So my friends Marta and Konrad, one is Borowiecka, one is Borowiecki, but it's the same surname, and then together they are the Borowiecki.
Okay.
Because Polish is like the most gendered language ever.
All right. Okay.
Which isn't great, but anyway, Marta won. So yeah, much respect to Marta Borowiecka.
For sure, yeah.
I'm sorry, Marta, I can't remember how to conjugate your surname because my Polish isn't good enough, and it's been a long time since we talked. But Marta won, and I want to just give credence to Marta, which was like a spinny game. It's a cooperative, and it looked really cool. I still never got the chance to play it. And
did that get published? Has that seen the light of day?
No, it hasn't.
That's a shame.
Afterwards, I know that Marta. I don't want to talk on behalf of Marta too much, but I know that Marta had other obligations, so it wasn't Marta's big reason for living at any point. If you know what I mean.
I can absolutely relate to that. Yeah.
Marta was like, it was nice. And Marta felt maybe a bit annoyed that after making one game with a spinny thing, then 2 years later, there was like 2 other games with spinny things, which Marta felt that feels very similar to what I made, and that's a bit annoying. And I think that turned Marta off a bit, but Marta's got other work, Marta's and Conrad have a family and, other obligations, and are, lovely people. And it's like, it is difficult. And I feel this almost goes into the sense of creative work is really challenging sometimes, in that to be able to do it full time, if you have, to do it at a level to make your mark upon the world, it has to be your full-time job, I would argue. And sure. I think that you can't really have many other obligations going on.
Agreed. Yeah, well, certainly. Yeah, it's horrible, but yeah, I think it's true. Yeah.
And that's a slightly negative.
Yeah, which is
thing.
bad. But the upside is that as a result of those competitions, there are a lot of games that were designed. All right, some of them might never see the light of day, but there's a lot of people that have learned a lot about designing board games as a result of that competition, which is the advantage of that over the Wyvern's Lair, because the Wyvern's Lair essentially says if you have a design, come and present it. Whereas the redesign competition says we're going to give you the tools and the incentive to design, and then you can present it. So I think that quite possibly there's going to be, I'm not surprised that two so far have come out of the redesign competition. Two published games have come out of the redesign competition. I wonder what happens to folk that don't get picked up at Wyvern's Lair. What happens there? Do they just get disheartened and not do it again? Do they go back? Do they what happens? I mean, that I feel is almost a more sort of open-ended and more depressing thing, in as much as you get, because I got no feedback whatsoever from Wyvern's Lair, like nothing, no offers, no feedback, zero. Everyone just nodded politely and went, yeah, no. Asked a couple of questions and just said and did nothing. And I thought, well, okay, that's...
So you didn't get the amount of feedback, because obviously the names are clearly a parody of Dragon's
yeah.
Den. That's the word, Dragon's
Yes.
Den. So you don't get the amounts of feedback that you would see in those like 7-minute clips of people saying, oh, what's about this? Have you considered this? Okay, your financials are right off, or like, would someone say, you know what? And to some degree, I think publishers don't want to be, pardon my language, don't want to, well, actually, I'm going to say it politely, publishers don't want to be a jerk. But it does, I think that if you had someone saying, you know what, this theme is derivative, and there's nothing in here that excites me, and for that reason, I'm out.
Yeah, and no, I think you're right. I think it'd be great. I think that publishers could just go, you know what, the game you've presented has one interesting thing. This is the one interesting thing. I think you should go back, focus on the interesting thing, and redesign a different game around it. Like something like that would be great feedback.
Too unfocused, and for that reason, I'm out. So like they should use these little catchphrases. Like if you look at the original season of Dragon's Den, I don't know when they started doing it, but they never actually used to say I'm out.
Like, really?
Yeah, they didn't actually always say that. They just said, yeah, this doesn't feel like a thing for me. And, it would be this wishy-washy. It doesn't have the same impact. And so
it has to have that sort of impact. Yeah, you need to know what the deal breakers are.
Now I think they apparently puts it into the contract that it's like a very small demand that they just have to say, I'm out. To say, I'm out. And then I think that, making it so that people don't want to sabotage their reputation, because publishing and board game designing has this expectation that everyone's kind of friendly, and as soon as you give any too much criticism or you don't help someone as much as you can risk being labeled a jerk. And I think that rest in peace. Oh my gosh, James Maffei. You know James Maffei?
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, for those who don't know, James Maffei published such games as Energy Empire, Manhattan Project, and a bunch of other stuff. And you can see them on a film where I think The Next Great American Game, where someone's coming up with this game and they're like, and there's a couple of people who say, this is interesting. And James Maffei says, no, just give up. I don't think this will get you anywhere. And I think that if you talk to that person, then that person will probably publish it, because that person publishes anything. But I'm not going to publish it. And they come across as a jerk, but you watched it and you think, you know what, they're kind of right. And in the end, it did get published. So the postscript that isn't in that film, because I had a contact with the designer, is that it did get published as a I think it's called Road Rage or something. But
It was Road Rage, yes. I had it. No, yeah, I had that game for a while because
but
I bought
I
it
feel we
to
need
see.
more people to be kind of jerky, and
Yeah,
someone who is like, you know what, I'm going to be the jerk in this thing, and let's actually make it both entertaining and meaningful. Because when you look at Dragon's Den, it's actually kind of instructive. I look
mm,
at that and I think, okay, if I wanted to get something published, I know, well, signed up by them, I know that I've got to have financials, I've got to be able to say the amount of money, and obviously a game design is a very different thing to starting a company, but it still has to have a spark. It still has to have something going on in it. And so I think, yeah, it it's difficult to balance the, is it a spectacle? Is it for the benefit of the people entering? And yeah, let's talk about lessons for other contests. I think that one lesson might be that your contest shouldn't be um, so grandiose in scope to take people from being amateur designers to being, yeah, people setting up their own publishing company, because that's a big ask.
it is a big
And
ask.
I think that it's okay to have, like, when I look at the LDEC design contest, I like to think that, sure, there's things that I could do better, but I like to think that um, no one's getting totally disillusioned, and it's a case of, hey, here's some games, and yeah, sure, Sebastian Bleasdale is already a published game designer who doesn't need my validation, but then they, maybe upsettingly for those who like high strategy games, actually submitted one of the simplest games that have ever been submitted for TL deck, because they wanted something to play with their 4 year old, and they said,
Yes.
hey, maybe other people could play this as well. And conversely, there's a bunch of other people who are very much hobbyists, and I don't think there's ever the expectation that this is going to take you anywhere, but there is a small cash prize, which is £100, and it's like,
Incentive.
it's meant to be like, yeah, I this is really good, and I appreciate what you've done, and hopefully it's not going to change your life, but it might
No,
change your
that's
week.
fine.
I don't know, depending
No, for
on.
sure, absolutely.
And
I think that's a great idea.
what I also have as like prizes is I try to give everyone feedback along the way, which I think works well. But then afterwards, I always say, yes, if you would like to have some consultation time, then we absolutely can. And there very few people take me up on that, surprisingly, because like
Interesting
some
one.
people um like do say, okay, let's and I say, like, this doesn't have to be about this game, it can be about any game, and I can playtest your game. I know Alex Cannon got me to playtest a couple of their other designs, and yeah, I know that, yeah, Kirsten Lund is really happy working with me. We are basically chatting every week, but that is focused on Questable. Like, I wouldn't be giving you 52 hours of my time, like, about anything you want. It would be more like, yeah, I'll give you 12 hours of my time, is what I kind of say there. But, and Seat says, did it for the money. Kidding. I did it because Bez asked me to try that. So lovely. And I think that's the thing, like, just encouraging other people, give it a go. Even if it's not the
Yes,
best game, you get some feedback.
doesn't matter.
And now guess Aqua's. Is that AC isn't a card, is it? I'm going to guess it's AL, but yeah, I don't know. It is AC a card? Have I forgotten my own deck? Huh. Um, AC,
Let's
is
see if I
that
can find the Fantastic Monsters game.
is AC a card? I
What we got?
AW. I'm not sure. No, I don't. I don't think that's. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's actually a card. Anyway, although I am missing one of the A's right now from this deck. I'm just realized AP, AJ, AW, AL, AM, and AG. No, AC doesn't exist. Ah, it was a chocolate card. Okay, so
Oh,
say
okay.
it's made a cooks a chocolate thing. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I think that it's interesting that even though I think that, and it's probably also notable that the one person that took me up on it is also the one person who's now, I believe, working full time in the game industry as a marketer. They are, and so
That's
it
cool.
was clearly a strong aspiration for them. They were really motivated to do that. Whereas for other people, it was like, hey, this was a fun thing to do, but I don't need to show you stuff or get you to playtest my stuff or just talk to you randomly.
I think you've got to respect that people are going to. I think that's one of the lessons you can learn from this is that your competition is going to be treated with different degrees of seriousness by the entrants, right? Some people are going to do it because it's fun and it's something to do. They're going to smash something together and submit it. Some people are going to take fairly clinical approach to this because they want to win it. And and there'll be all points in between. Some people are going to going to design something which is a great game but will never be published, and some people are going to design stuff which could easily be published but isn't ready and lacks the designers lack the impetus to do it. And you
Mm-mm.
can't impose your own sort of
Absolutely not.
philosophy on anyone else. All you can do is set the structure and see what happens, right?
I mean, Kate says I took you up on it, and I am also now full time in the industry. I didn't realize that you took me up on the mentorship at all. I thought that was purely just because of you listening to my streams and having Board Game Arena come on here, and then when. Yeah, I don't think that was anything. I mean, was it to do with. Yeah. You played with us over Tabletop Simulator. Oh, okay. I apparently played with Alex and Sate a totally different game on Tabletop Simulator. I completely forgot. I do apologize.
Happens.
Hashtag don't forget your friends.
Well,
I'll try my best. But I think that's a really nice way to end.
I think
That
so.
you
I
have
think
to
I think
be
ending on
mindful of your audience.
yeah,
And
mindful of being respectful and mindful of your audience. I think is actually a really positive way to end. Yeah.
when you are designing a contest, when you're designing an event, it's sure this might be an event or a contest about people designing things, but be mindful of what they actually want to do. Like, if people are, and maybe make it kind of clear in the
Yes.
literature who it's open for, because if I'm running a 2 hour workshop where people make a game, I could absolutely do that. I could absolutely get anyone to make a game of some description within 2 hours. I think, yeah, for some people it might be something that some other people might
Yeah.
quite.
Run a mile from. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
but I think that everyone could make a game if you are someone who's trying to do it for the sake of what does game design even mean? I want to try game design. Then that's one audience. If it's someone who says, "Oh, I've enjoyed game design. I'd like to practice it. I'd like to become better." That's another audience. And if it's a case of, oh, I want to become a professional game designer. I want this to become my full time job one day and for this to become my full life. That's a completely different audience. And I don't think you kind of cater to everyone in a workshop or in the way that you present stuff, unless I guess you've got some sorts of, yeah, different options like channel things through. And in this day and age, there are enough contests out there, enough things going on that I think whoever you are, you will hopefully find something suited for you. So that's a good place to end.
I think it's a great. That was interesting. That was really, really useful. Cathartic as
Thank
well.
you so much for that. Um, is there anything else you want to say about the redesign contest?
That's more words than I've spoken about it in the last 10 years, I think. That's it. I think it's no, it's great, and I hope everyone sort of I hope everyone focuses on the positive parts of my experience with it, which was that making the game out of somebody else's bits was incredibly fun, and the when it meets the reality of the board games industry. Just be sure you know what you want to get out of it, because it should still be fun. Because if it's not fun, then don't do it. Because you know, plenty of ways to have a miserable time in this world, and board games shouldn't be one of them.
That's the quote of the day. Plenty of ways to have a miserable time in this world.
Yeah, you don't need to find new ones. There's plenty out there.
So at this point, question of the day. Here's a little question before we go on our way. Matt, what is the question of the day for me and anyone else who chooses to answer?
The question of the day is the question of the day is a tricky one. The question of the day is lunch or dinner, because it's a festive thing, right? I mean, what's your preferred meal? I mean, you know, where do you stand on this?
Oh, you're asking me which one should be the feast? Should it be a lunch feast or a dinner feast?
Yeah, which one? Which meal do you prefer? I think you take it more generic than that, but because it was in my mind because it was Christmas. But yes, which is your preferred meal, dinner or lunch?
Say it says dinner. I mean, I think that for festivities, for having a big thing together, I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to say lunch. I mean, I like a big meal, and then you can sort of have it brings people together. You've still got the entire rest of the day. You can maybe wander around a tiny bit. It doesn't mean you have to get up super early to get the turkey and all that started if you want to have like a really big lunch. Maybe a late lunch, early dinner is the ideal.
I see. A late lunch, early dinner. I see.
Like around 2 p.m., 3 p.m.
I think that's right.
And that's like your big meal, and then you just stuff yourself. You maybe play some games. You talk, and then you kind of recline on the sofa talking to each other, and then a few hours later you kind of start having some of the leftovers and putting it into the fridge.
Start creating the ultimate sandwich out of everything that's left over. Yeah.
Oh no, that's the following days.
That's the following day. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
No, that's all good.
How about you, Matt?
I very much prefer lunch over dinner. Just generally, I do. It's because I mean, more than anything else, you can call anything a lunch pretty much. So I think the obligation's off completely.
I mean, you could have cereal for dinner.
I mean,
if you really want.
I think this is just a marketing ploy by people that make cereal to go, no, it's perfectly normal to eat cereal at other points of the day, when the evidence is shockingly clear that actually the majority of it is consumed before 9 o'clock.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But if you want to have it,
if you want to have cereal, that's fine. I've never understood the concept of cereal cafes as well. That they constantly vex me about people turning up and eating a bowl of cereal at all manner of points. I mean, this is where chaos starts.
Cereal cafes are a very small thing. Do you understand that it's basically because it's a novelty?
It's a novelty, yeah.
That's the entire gimmick. It's like someone saying baked bean cafe. I mean, yeah, if I could import like a lot of beans, I could make hot cuisine with this arroquio en verre and in tomato juice. And
I like it. Very excellent. Yeah.
So basically, you've got like get 10 different tins and like have different like a tasting menu, and you have like teeny little bowls. I think it could actually be a thing.
The fruit salad cafe. Yeah, I mean that's fantastic. Yeah, this is brilliant. Who'd have thought that we'd end there? No, this is great.
And then get people comparing the like if you were doing it in London, you can't just do the English places. You've got to import some of these tins.
Oh,
Like,
yeah, absolutely, yeah, around the world, yeah.
Yeah, like you get
Global bean extravaganza.
baked beans from France and
Yeah.
Germany, and if you import so many beans, I think you would be opening a concert hall, says Xate. I think that's a joke about farting.
I think it is.
Okay, so over to you. What are you up to? You can share Botsy if you want to. Having had a lovely double length show, it's like been like a double feature. Um, I am. I was feeling really rough and was ready to go back to sleep. I'm not sure if I'm going to have breakfast or if I'm going to go back to sleep.
Go for
I do
lunch.
have.
Go for
I mean,
lunch.
technically, I'm breaking my fast, so it's my breakfast. I can have
Oh,
breakfast at 5 p.m.
any point you want. No, that's fair. You've got it on a technicality, I think. That's fine.
But yeah, I've got 2 mince pies, like out of a pack of 6, which was bought for me by my neighbor. I'm going to see if I'm going to open the door and see how, or a window, and see how I feel about the cold and if I feel okay with my standing up. And I'm still feeling dizzy, I'm still feeling rotten, but it's been a delight to chat. I'm going to just focus on having a good time, whatever that means.
I
Maybe
think so.
playing some quick physical game, maybe a couple of levels of Questable, see how I get on. Um, I might play something on Board Game Arena. I might yeah, make myself some proper food. I might snooze, but I'm just going to take it easy, do whatever I do. How about you, Matt? Are you having
I,
bits of time off?
I'm actually. I had a thoroughly relaxing day yesterday. Actually, so this time off lark I could get used to. So today I'm going to. I'm going to cook. I'm going to cook some sort of lunch because I have to, because I feel obligated to, and because I'm looking forward to it as well, which is going to be that'll be good fun. But we have a thing in the office where we have we share film recommendations or TV recommendations, and so I've been tasked with watching Mamma Mia over the Christmas break, which I've never seen before. So I have a suspicion that this will be. So I think I'm going to go for lunch preparation with Mamma Mia as my that will sort me out for the next few hours. That's the plan, anyway. I then have to make. I'm going to obviously have to remember this and come back and make extensive sort of mental notes about this, and then report back to the lady in the office that recommended that I should was not just recommended this, but was aghast that I hadn't seen it. I'm like, well, okay, well, clearly it's a
Mamma mia.
yeah.
Got the
I mean, my parents were huge ABBA fans as well, so I know most of the songs, right? So I clearly this is a travesty, a gap in my musical knowledge that I need to sort out. So that's the plan. The plan is basically is peeling, lunch preparation, Mamma Mia, singing, eating, probably in
Great.
roughly that order. Yeah, it's going to be
Sounds
great, and I'll
good.
probably get back and do some more stuff to this
It
document.
says traditionally lunch foods are nicer than breakfast foods. I don't care for traditional breakfast unless leftover pizza counts as traditional.
It's entirely traditional, absolutely traditional, student traditional.
Xates is up for some board game arena, being biased, of course. And I would have been going to rockabilly concerts at a Christmas market in a small town in the state next to mine, but COVID, so I am not. Many hugs. And yeah, I am up for starting something turn-based, but yeah, maybe some. But yeah, I might genuinely be sleeping or while I'm eating, or just kind of doing something non-interactive as well. But at this point, as always, I like to recap and wrap up before we finish up. So we talked about so much. We talked about Sam Mercer, Redesign, the Truxcara, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Troxcaber, but they if you've got Flicky Spaceships, it's the Trox rockets. They're named after them. So there you go.
Truxcaba, the insect that feasts on owl poop and lives only in owl nests. Board Game Arena, family, simplicity. We talked about feedback and inspiration and deadlines, some of the reasons why the contest was brilliant. We talked about some of the people responsible: Alan, Cara, Matt, Brett, Michael, Rob Harris, UK Games Expo representative. All of these people working to make something that they felt would bring joy to the world. But then having the difference between that opportunity to show, like just, yeah, you can be at the table if you want, versus the obligation, especially when it's put in parts of a contest, when the feedback that you get, and if the quality of that feedback, if the numbers that are given is going to determine who wins, that's going to influence the feedback in a way that means that for the person competing, it's not genuine feedback anymore, which is a bit sad. We talked about it leaving a bad taste in the mouth after having this expectation that all these doors would open, but in reality, it just didn't quite work out that way. You did have 6 lovely phone calls with Alan Paull, but in the end came to the realization that it's down to spending a bit of money and time that, whilst it might seem minimal to someone who's wanting to do this as a full-time career, it's enough of a barrier that it would take it out of the realms of being an enjoyable activity. We talked, speaking of enjoyable activities, you said that there's plenty of ways to have a miserable time in this world, and that board games shouldn't be one of them. We talked about the idea that even if you're not able to do all of these things, you can still go on social media, pitch when you can, and it doesn't need to be a big, okay, I'll spend 50% of this convention pitching and this will be my primary focus. And if I don't get anything published, I'll be upset. But hopefully, to build it, if you're at a convention anyway, to build it into a bigger lifestyle, or maybe you can do, there are opportunities to do things remotely nowadays, especially after the pandemic. It's become far more normal. If you are able to do a video, or if you're able to make a sell sheet, but frankly, even making a sell sheet requires quite a bit of graphic design and a lot of other forms of expertise that you might not have. I mean, I myself know that I don't have the skills required to make a great sell sheet. And so it's ultimately about consideration for the people, is the conclusion that we came to. That think about the audience, think about why you're making this contest, think about why you're entering this contest, think about what makes sense for those people. And it's fine to offer things as options. I mean, for the LDEC design contest, I know that Kirsten Lunde won't be coming flying over halfway around the world to, I mean, flying all the way around the world would be like coming from London to London, but circumnavigating the globe. But yes, I never sure, is it all the way around the world or is it halfway around the world if you're coming from the other side? But in any case, Kirsten isn't going to be coming from New Zealand to the UK Games Expo just to have a small table. But that opportunity is there, and hopefully it never feels like an obligation. I hope that Alex had a good time being there, and when if Joseph Kelly is going to be at the stand this year, then I similarly hope that they have a great time, even though Dwindle, as a one-player game, is a little bit of a weird one to be showing off, but I hope we'll be able to feed them a good number of things. And it ideally being part of a bigger thing and giving those contests a go if you want, but just be aware of why you're doing it and maybe what you don't want to do. Is there anything else that you'd like to say, Matt?
Oh dear. Oh, excuse me, struggling for it. I think that's a great recap.
Thank you.
I think that's a really good recap, and yeah, I think it's important to end it positively as well, because I think it is. I think it is important that you games themselves are, an increasingly games industry is, or you're trying to sort of commoditize your sort of your hobby to try and sort of find monetize your hobbies. I think that it'd be too easy to do that with us, especially with the competition. So do it because it's fun. Do it because you want to. Do it because you want to enter a competition and see what happens. So yeah, do it because it's remember this is all supposed to be fun.
I like that. And if you want to check me out, I am Stuff by Bez in all of the places. Stuffbybez.com/streams will tell you what I'm chatting about on the future days. Tomorrow, I have. Oh, tomorrow I'm actually meeting Pablo Govera, who works for Hero Time Manufacturing, assuming that Pablo sends me their bio, because that still hasn't been done. But yes, they live in Argentina. They are a couple of hours behind, but even though it's Christmas, I'll have to send them a reminder. Tuesday, I'm meeting Drew Schmiel, who's lovely American, sells board games. Wednesday, talking about Dutch auctions with Alan Paull. Thursday, discussing Keyforge with Stuart Green. Friday's always a quick chat. And yeah, 31st first, I might chat about the year. I might do a debrief. I guess I'm not going to go into details for the Board Game Arena games that I mentioned I was, unless, of course, one of my guests cancels on me. In which case, I'll do another playing through stuff. But if you want to check out Matt Green, it is mgreen02 on Board Game Geek. I'm just struggling to find. Let me grab it off YouTube. But the last thing I like to say is share, spread the word. Thank you very much. And thank you very, very much, Matt, for the chat.
It's been a pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Have a great day. To everyone.
And to everyone out there, lots of love and bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, bye, everyone.